Hello YouTube, welcome to this video where we're going to be installing Python onto my Mac. In order to do that, I'm going to be using something called pyenv, which is a package version manager you can use in order to install multiple versions of Python on your machine. Now, you might want to do that because it's very common that you have lots of different projects, each requiring a different version of Python. If you didn't have the ability to switch between them, you have to uninstall Python and reinstall Python. Very complicated, not something you want to be doing. Another reason is Macs used to come in already installed with Python version 2.7, which is deprecated, but you didn't really want to deinstall that for Macs due to the fact that it still required some of their old previous tooling to use that. So we want to be going ahead and running Python 3, and so it's what I'm going to set up on this Mac. So you want to go ahead and open your terminal, and I'm using a thing called iterm. If you want to see exactly if you're using either bash scripts or Z shell scripts, you can just do echo $0, and this is just to show that I'm using Z shell. I think most Macs now come with Z shell installed, and it's basically just the way of using your terminal, a shell scripting tool which we're going to use. And I can show right now that by running which Python, to show which Python version I have installed on this machine. I don't have Python installed. Also, if I run Python -- version, my Z shell doesn't know what Python is. So this is the most recent version of Mac OS I could get on this machine, which is running on Sonoma 14.6. So previous versions of Mac, I think before version 12 of Mac OS, it would come up with Python 2.7, which is something I don't want to be using anyway. So let's just go along. I've not pre-prepared anything here. We're just going to go ahead and work this together. I'm just going to type clear just to clean up my machine here. So like I said, we're going to be using this pyenv tool, but in order to do that, we need to install pyenv, and I'm going to use something called Homebrew. So I'm going to jump off onto the internet here and just search for Homebrew. It should give us a curl command in order to do so. So when I install Homebrew, so I'm going to copy this command into my terminal. Just using Command C and Command Z, copy and paste. Click enter here. Now, it's checking sudo access, which is basically saying I need to use my password because I'm trying to make some changes to the machine. So I'm going to enter my password, and this is just the password that I log into the machine with. This is saying all the things it's going to install. You can read through these if you wish. It's also going to install Xcode command line tools, which is something that we need for Homebrew. Now, this is quite a lengthy process, so I'm going to click enter to accept those terms. And at this point, I'll probably use the magic of the internet to pause this video and skip ahead, because this can take a few minutes. So go grab yourself a tea or coffee and come on back, and I'll join you in a few minutes. Okay, thanks to the magic of the internet, we are back. Homebrew is finished installing, as you can see. It's completed. You can go through and read all these if you want to. The way of checking if it's completed is just to type brew -- version. That should show us the fact we've got Homebrew. Now we can go off and get what's called the cask to get pyenv. Go back to the Homebrew website. I'm going to search for pyenv, which is the package that we want to help manage our multiple versions of Python. So it's found our Homebrew formula. The install command is here, which we're going to just copy. Go back to our terminal. And we're going to run this brew install pyenv. While it's installing away, I'm just going to go over to pyenv and find exactly how to start running the commands for pyenv. So jump to a new internet browser and search for pyenv. This is probably not the GitHub package, which is exactly what we're interested in. This is what Homebrew is installing for us in the background. So this is a GitHub repository. This would be the README file that's coming. So I'm going to scroll down and hopefully there'll be some instructions and the basic commands we can use to install any version of Python that we want. So as it says here, let's just switch between multiple versions of Python. Shows a few demos of some things you can run. But what we're interested in is how to actually go ahead and use it. Let's jump down to the usage. So we can run pyenv install l, gives a list of all available versions we can run. We can run this command install to get the specific versions we're interested in. Let's see what's available to us. It's still running. I'll cut back in a second when this is done. Okay, we're back, and pyenv seems to installed. So I can run pyenv -- version to make sure it's installed. And it has, 2.4.10. Just when you're working on any command line things, normally the convention is if you write the command for what you're trying to run and do -- help, normally there's Unix documentation showing you some of the things you can do. This example shows you some of the commands we can run here, which is great. So we still don't have Python installed. Now we want to use pyenv to get us a version of Python. So let's see what we can run. It says we can run pyenv install -l to see all the possible lists, versions of Python so that we can run. So let's see, pyenv install -l. And it shows you all of the different versions of Python you can run. There's a lot of them. So I'm just going to grab the standard one and let's go for version 3. And looks like we're up to some development environments. I'm not going to go for a development one, I'm going to get a stable one. So I'm going to go for 3.12.5. That's what we're going to go for. So we can do pyenv install 3.12.5. And this should now go and install Python for us. Now, although this is installed, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to be using it. So I have to run some commands next to make sure that we select this version. And the way that pyenv is suggesting, one of the ways we can do this is by running this pyen global. And we'll do this and make sure it switches to it. Verifying the Python 3 framework. And now that's completed, we now have 3.12.5 of Python installed. It doesn't mean it's actually set up. I can prove that by typing python -- version. My machine still doesn't know what that is. But looking at some of the commands we ran earlier on, one of the options are versions with an S for pyenv. It'll show you all the known versions it currently has. So it's saying it's got a system version, which is currently set up under my pyenv version, which isn't actually anything. And it's also got 3.12.5 available to me. So I can install lots of different versions of Python and they'll all start appearing in this list. So back to the documentation, how do we set this as our actual version? Let's find what it's telling us to do. To select the above mentioned newly installed Python as your preferred version, use pyenv global. So let's try that with our version. Pyenv global, and we want to do 3.12.5. That's completed. So now when I run pyenv versions again, or just tap the up arrow on my keyboard to bring up the last command, I can go up to say pyenv versions. Run at this time, you'll notice that the asterisk, the little star, is next to 3.12.5. So if I now type python -- version, now this is usually because I think we might have to either set some environment variables in our shell script, or sometimes we have to close this window. And we can either do that by typing a source command to reload this, or I can just close my terminal and reopen a fresh one. Let's try this. Python -- version. Still not found. Let's trouble solve this then. Right. Okay, here's our first problem. Let's find what we've missed. Okay, so let's see what we've done here. So I think the reason this is not working, I'm just going to clear this, is because our machine still doesn't know about Python. It not indicates that it's not on our path. So if you echo $path, it shows you all of the libraries and the instances that our machine is aware of. And in here, I'm not seeing anything specific to Python, which is what's missing. So we need to alter our path, which we can do via our Z shell RC file, so it understands exactly what it is we want to point our path to in terms of Python. So this is going to be involving putting a path to exactly where we've installed Python in our directory. I'm going to Google this because I'm sure there's an answer to save me. I'm going to figure this out myself. And this is, how to install. How to install Python on Mac via pyenv. And here's an article I visited previously. Clearly done this in the past at one point. It's good. Eric Sims default blog. This is good. This person is doing the same thing we've done. They've installed Brew. They have installed pyenv. Affixed to the Brew file. Here we go. Configure your Z shell profile. Thank you, Eric. This is exactly what I need. This is exporting. So this line is basically printing off these commands into my Z shell RC file. I can show what that means. If I go ahead and do cat, and let's do root directory hidden file Z shell RC. What I missed? Misspelled Z shell. Sorry. There's only one thing in there, so it's missing this. So let's use these commands here. Copy those, paste them here. You should be a bit careful about copying and pasting things or command lines straight off the internet, but I've done this in the past, so this looks fine to me. Okay, so now I'm going to go into that ZShellRC file just to see what it looks like. I'm going to use Nano. There's lots of different text editors. I'm going to go to my root, ZShellRC, and hopefully now you see that I had that initial line, but now it's exporting pyenv root to be my home directory and then the hidden directory pyenv, which is where all my versions of Python are going. And we're then specifically adding that onto our path here. Excellent. So now again I'll have to close and reopen this shell file, but Eric again has kindly told us that you could also do that by just doing exec $shell. Save us having to do it. Basically reload up our shell file. So now if I do Python -- version, hopefully you can see that we now got Python 3.12.5. So there you have it. We've now successfully installed Python via pyenv on our MacBook, and we're good to go with the development of Python. So in this instance, I'm going to move on next to start working on our Django REST framework API using Python. But this is relevant to anyone else that wants to put Python in a nice configurable way in their Mac. Thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you again soon, hopefully.